All right, let's jump right into this explainer and seriously upgrade our water cooler gossip. We're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden psychological characters that literally dictate human behavior, straight from Daniel Kahneman's brilliant book, Thinking Fast and Slow. We're constantly talking about the choices of others, right? Our coworkers, friends, people in the news. But what if we actually had a precise vocabulary to understand exactly why they make those decisions? What if we could literally see the gears turning in their heads? Well, that's exactly the toolkit we're building today.
Now, what's super interesting about this idea is how Kahneman actually frames our goal. He points out this fundamental, kind of hilarious truth about human nature. It is way easier and, let's be honest, a lot more fun to spot the mistakes of other people than to admit our own. So look, our aim here isn't to beat ourselves up over our irrational choices. Not at all. It's to become expert diagnosticians of human error. Think of it like a doctor learning medical jargon to diagnose an illness. We're going to learn the precise language of cognitive biases, and by starting with diagnosing other people at the water cooler, we can eventually learn to turn that lens inward and catch our own systematic errors before we make them.
To really get a feel for how your mind works, look at this quick math problem, 17 times 24. Seriously, don't just gloss over it. Actually try to solve it right now. Do you feel what just happened in your head? You instantly knew it was a multiplication problem, right? You knew you could probably solve it if you had a pencil and a minute, but to get the exact answer, which is 408 by the way, you had to physically shift gears. Your muscles probably tensed up a bit, your blood pressure rose, your heart rate bumped up. If I was looking right into your eyes, I'd actually see your pupils dilate. You had to deliberately slow down and do real, taxing mental work.
And that feeling of shifting gears, that introduces the two main characters of our mental psychodrama. You basically have two completely different systems running the show up there. Meet System 1. It operates automatically. It's fast, it's effortless, and it's highly emotional. It's what lets you read words instantly or hear hostility in someone's voice without even trying. Then we have the co-star, System 2. This one handles highly effortful mental tasks, exactly like that math problem we just tackled. System 2 is controlled, it's deliberate. It's the voice in your head that you think of as you, your sense of choice and deep concentration. But here's the massive catch. System 2 is incredibly lazy, like famously lazy. It usually just cruises along in low effort mode, totally relying on the fast, impulsive suggestions constantly fed to it by System 1. We think we're the conscious, rational System 2, but honestly, System 1 is usually the secret author behind the wheel.
Okay, let's put this into practice with an interactive test. This will show you exactly what happens when these two mental characters get thrown into a cage match. Just mentally try these two tasks. First, scan the upcoming columns and just say out loud if the word is printed in uppercase or lowercase letters. Then, for the second task, go down those same columns and say whether the word is positioned on the left or the right side of the center. Sounds super simple, right?
Go ahead and give it a try. Focus on saying the physical position of the word, left or right. I bet you're stumbling a little bit, and that is totally normal. That frustrating strain you're feeling, that's an actual literal battle happening inside your brain right now. Saying upper or right based on physical position demands the focused, deliberate attention of your System 2. But the words are staring right at you, and your fast, automatic System 1, you can't turn it off. It just reads the word instantly. So when the text says upper, but it's printed in lowercase, or it says left, but it's sitting on the right side of the screen, your System 2 is violently fighting to overcome the automatic reading impulse of System 1. This right here perfectly illustrates a huge part of System 2's job, acting as your self-control and overriding System 1's immediate impulses.
Now check out these two horizontal lines. This brilliantly illustrates a completely different kind of conflict, a cognitive illusion. Your automatic System 1 takes one glance and immediately shouts, "The bottom line is longer." It's an overwhelming visual impression. But this is the famous Mueller-Lyer illusion. Those horizontal lines are actually identical in length. Here's the crazy part. Even if you take out a ruler and measure them, and your conscious System 2 acquires this new absolute fact, you can't stop System 1 from doing its thing. You will still visually perceive that bottom line is longer. You literally just have to learn to mistrust your own eyes. And guess what? This exact same thing happens with our thoughts. We experience cognitive illusions, where we have to recognize the trap and actively tell System 2, hey, do not believe what System 1 is telling you right now.
So, how do we actually measure the physical reality of all this mental effort? Let's walk through a mental sprint called the Add 1 task. Imagine a metronome ticking every single second. You hear a string of 4 completely random digits. You wait 2 beats, and then you have to speak a brand new string of digits out loud, but you have to add the number 1 to each of the original digits. So if you heard 5294, you'd have to say 6305, all while keeping perfect time with the metronome. This task is brutal. It pushes human cognitive capacity to its absolute limits and completely forces your lazy System 2 to wake up and sprint.
And the crucial takeaway here is that mental effort isn't just some abstract idea. It takes a profound, measurable physical toll on your body. If you trace the timeline of this task, you get this inverted V shape of pupil dilation. Kahneman's research essentially found that your pupils are a literal window into your mental exertion. As you hear those digits, the effort builds. Within just 5 seconds of max concentration, your pupils actually dilate by a massive 50% of their original size, and your heart rate spikes. You hit peak effort right as you formulate the answer. And then, the split second you speak the answer and unload your short-term memory, your pupils rapidly shrink back to normal. It is literally visualizing how intense thinking burns real physical energy and completely alters your physiology.
But listen, there is a massive danger to that level of intense focus. System 2 has a very strict, very limited budget of attention. If you overspend that budget, things fall apart. Which brings us to the famous invisible gorilla experiment. People watch a video of 2 basketball teams passing a ball, and they're told to carefully count the passes made by the team wearing white. Halfway through, a woman in a full gorilla suit walks right across the court, thumps her chest, and is on screen for 9 whole seconds. And incredibly, half the people watching never even see the gorilla. Why? Because that counting task is completely maxing out System 2. Normally, noticing a giant gorilla is an automatic System 1 job, but it still requires a tiny sliver of attention. When System 2 is overloaded, you become effectively blind to the obvious. And the wildest part? When you tell people they missed a gorilla, they are shocked. We aren't just blind to the obvious, we are completely blind to our own blindness.
All right, let's pivot to another scenario and see what happens when System 2 gets lazy and lets System 1 take the wheel, using mental shortcuts, what psychologists call heuristics. Let's talk about Steve. Steve is shy, he's meek, he's tidy, he needs order, and he has a real passion for detail. Based on that, is Steve more likely to be a librarian or a farmer? Well, your fast associative System 1 immediately jumps in, right? The description fits the cultural stereotype of a librarian perfectly. It just feels intuitively true. System 1 offers up this resemblance as a quick shortcut to answer what is actually a really complex statistical question.
But right there, that is the trap. The number 20. In the United States, there are actually more than 20 male farmers for every 1 male librarian. Because the baseline number of farmers is just so incredibly huge, statistically speaking, you are almost guaranteed to find more meek and tiny souls driving tractors than sitting behind a library help desk. Your System 1 totally ignored that fundamental statistical reality because the stereotype was just so easy to grab onto. And your lazy System 2? It just nodded along and accepted the intuitive answer without bothering to do the hard math. That right there is a classic cognitive bias caused by the resemblance heuristic.
Here's another massive flaw in how we intuitively think, the availability heuristic. If I ask you right now, is the letter K more likely to be the first letter in a word or the third letter? What happens? Your brain instantly starts searching for examples. It is super easy to think of words that start with K, right? Kitchen, kite, kangaroo. It is way harder to quickly conjure up words where K is the third letter like ask or make. Because those first-letter words pop into your mind with zero effort, your System 1 confidently declares, yep, K definitely appears more often at the beginning. But statistically, letters like K, L, N, R, and V actually show up far more frequently in the third position. We systematically misjudge reality purely based on how easily examples pop into our memory.
So, we're going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Right now, as you look at these shapes, your System 1 is automatically turning them into words and meaning without even asking your permission. It literally never turns off. But what is your System 2 completely failing to notice in your environment right now because you're focused on my voice and this explainer? Our minds are locked in a constant, lifelong tug-of-war between this fast, emotional System 1 and a highly capable but hopelessly lazy System 2. By keeping yourself hyper-aware of these two characters, and learning the language of their biases, like the resemblance heuristic, the availability heuristic, or our own blindness, you become a much, much sharper diagnostician of the human mind. So, the next time you're chatting at the water cooler, don't just gossip about what people did. Think about the hidden machinery of why they did it.